Hi, I'm Amy and this is Adam, and we work as investment consultants at EriksensGlobal. And we wanted to talk today about how the US Fed kept their cash rate indication steady in May, but closer to home, we're kind of singing from a different song sheet. So, do you want to talk about what happened in Australia and New Zealand last month?
Happy to. So after seeing nothing change at the Fed at the start of May, both with tariffs and global economic uncertainty sort of weighing on everything over there, it was nice to see both the Reserve Bank of Australia and the Reserve Bank of New Zealand cut interest rates. So from the RBA, we got a 25 basis point cut. That brought the cash rate down to 3.85%. And that's just the second cut from the Reserve Bank of Australia in the current easing cycle. Meanwhile, from the RBNZ, we also got a 25 basis point cut, bringing the official cash rate down to 3.25%, although we're at a very different point in the cycle. So that brings total easing from the RBNZ to about 225 basis points over the last year.
So it's good news for anyone with a revolving mortgage portion. But while they cut the same amounts, very different pace of cuts, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And I think a lot of that comes back to both where the bank started and then how inflation progressed throughout 2021. So if we take a look at Australia, they started at lower inflation in 2020 than New Zealand did. And then if we look at what happened in 2021, inflation in New Zealand shot up at a faster pace. And so as a result, what we saw is the RBA took about 6 months longer than RBNZ to actually start raising interest rates. And similarly, the Australian cash rate took 6 months longer to reach its peak than the New Zealand official cash rate did.
Now people might be wondering, why? What is behind the central bank's decisions to differ in this way?
Well, I think a lot of the reason comes back to the situation in labour markets as well as underlying inflation. So if we start with labour markets, we can take a look at what's happening now and what they've said in their most recent statements to get a bit of a sense of where interest rates are likely to go, and also to get a sense of how much this has been a constraint for the banks. So the Reserve Bank of Australia still sees labour market tightness over there. They're still seeing it as a constraint for businesses, and unemployment in Australia is still sitting pretty much a full percentage point below pre-COVID levels. The further back you go, the bigger that gap becomes.
Which is quite fantastic.
It's great if you're an employee, but it's challenging if you're a bank that's worried about wage inflation. So in New Zealand, it's a pretty different story. Over here, unemployment is back to around about pre-COVID levels, and the RBNZ still thinks that there's going to be a little bit more to come from that. So a very different situation labour market-wise. And I also mentioned that inflation itself was a difference here.
Yeah.
Now, inflation itself actually ended up being higher in Australia at its absolute peak, although in New Zealand we found ourselves sticking a lot longer at that 7.2% mark. So that's been another difference in the bank's experiences of managing inflation in respective economies.
Yeah. And then back to the labour market, I think there's a bit of a relationship with some skilled workers from New Zealand hopping across the Tasman to go enjoy that labour market over there. But from our home in New Zealand, we're saying signing off now. For more information, you can read our economic commentary or visit our website, and we'll talk to you soon.